welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, Justin Baker, co-hosts, and we are in the midst of free agency. As you know, of course, Mitchell Marner is the talk of the town right now. Who knows, an offer sheet might come. Probably not. I just still don't see it. Even though Sebastian Aho got one, go ahead, give him 1 year, $13 million is kind of the rumor. I mean, you're an idiot if you do that. Leafs should just take the four first round picks and run, because any team willing to do that probably over the next 4 years will offer up a chance at the lottery. Like they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
If it's Montreal, they'll probably miss the playoffs sometime over the next 4 years.
You can trade those 4 first rounders and get production to fill in.
Absolutely. Yeah, you look at, 2 first round draft picks get you freaking Erik Karlsson.
Yeah, pretty much.
Obviously plus, but let's say 3 first round draft picks get you Erik Karlsson.
Yeah, maybe you find a New Jersey team desperate enough to trade Hall. If he doesn't want to re-sign, you give him a couple first rounders. Boom. Set. And you get 2 more first rounders.
I just don't. $13 million. Go ahead, screw yourself over. If it's Montreal, 13 plus your 10.5 for Carey Price, and you're going to quickly numbers are going to start to add up on you. So on today's show, what we're going to do, we are going to go team by team, signing by signing to an extent. We're going to kind of stay away from those minor deals, like, for example, the Anaheim Ducks signing Yanni Hakanpää to a 1 year, $850. Don't know who he is, sorry, if you're a Ducks fan and he's like your favorite fourth liner.
Yeah, that's a swipe.
He's a defenseman.
Swipe right, swipe left on,
Yes, exactly. So we'll go down some of the more standard names, maybe some sleeper picks of ours. We'll grade a few of these picks. Some of them we'll just kind of give some analysis and move on. But I think that we'll just kind of have some fun with this. There was a lot that's happened. We waited a few days after to see if maybe Mitch Marner would sign, or maybe Laine, Rantanen, one of these guys would get signed. And really all that happened was Aho in terms of this crew of restricted free agents. So let's get her going. Anaheim Ducks, let's go in alphabetical order.
All right.
So the Anaheim Ducks basically did nothing. I actually saw a meme, and it was like a picture of a guy asleep, and it said Bob Murray on July 1st every year.
Oh, goodness.
He was just asleep. They signed Anthony Stolarz to a 2-year, $1.5 million deal.
Yeah, only move I like that they did, honestly. Got a good third-string goaltender, and, let's face it, Ryan Miller, 1 year, he's probably got 1 year left in him. But you got a guy who's got an opportunity to compete for a backup spot after this season and maybe make an impression on the franchise going forward.
All right. The Arizona Coyotes, they also not a whole lot. They re-signed a couple guys. Lawson Cruz does get a decent deal. Remember, Lawson Cruz was involved in a trade with the Panthers. Got him from the Panthers. All
right.
A 3-year, $1.53 million cap hit for Lawson Cruz. And if he was a first round draft pick, and so he's only 22 years old. He hasn't exactly produced the way that they would hope. 25 points in 81 games last year. But to get a guy who's 22 years old and is getting a cap hit of $1.5 million, who put up 25 points for you playing on your third, fourth line, there's a chance that he can develop into a guy who's getting 40 points. And in that case, for the next 3 years, that's a bargain deal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, good depth move.
Okay, that's pretty much it for the Arizona Coyotes. Let's go to the Boston Bruins, who, again, not a whole lot happening with the Bruins other than a Connor Clifton, 3 years, $3 million deal, $1 million cap hit. I like it for the depth of their defense.
Yeah.
Just re-signing a guy. They also signed Par Lindholm, former Toronto Maple Leaf, former, I think it was a Winnipeg Jet. Yep, Winnipeg Jet is where he ended up last year. Basically a fourth-line center, and never really found a home with either one of those teams, but signs with the Bruins for an $850,000 cap hit for 2 years, though. So an interesting move for them. You're always looking at, when a team wins the Stanley Cup, you know that they may lose a few players, And so what do they do to kind of, or when they have to re-sign certain guys coming up, especially like a Charlie Coyle,
McAvoy.
And Charlie McAvoy, but also Charlie Coyle. Did Charlie Coyle sign?
No, he's still under contract, but McAvoy is, the RFA that's going to need some big money, and I think that's another reason too why you see a free agent on the market right now with Marcus Johansson, who hasn't signed anywhere and didn't re-sign in Boston because the money. Right.
Charlie Coyle has one more year left, and he's making 3.2. He's definitely going to get a raise, especially if he plays the way that he played in the playoffs. He's going to get 5+.
Yeah, and he's going to get the opportunity to play in the top 6 for that team this year too.
I mean, let's be honest. If Kevin Hayes is getting 7, some moron's willing to pay him $7 million. And granted, he didn't have a wild regular season. He did have 56 points a couple years ago, but 16 points in 24 playoff games. And I don't think the Bruins get to the finals without Charlie Coyle.
No, not at all. And I think if he falls somewhere in between that 56 regular season and that nice playoff run he had, you're talking a 40 to 50 point player. That's easy $6 million on the market today.
Yep, absolutely. The Buffalo Sabres, another team kind of void of any real moves here.
Maybe we should have started at the other end of the alphabet.
At the bottom, yeah. They re-signed Zemgus Girgensons, who's been largely a disappointment. He could probably slow down the drinking. It might help him. I have a friend who knows him. And Andrew Hammond, bringing in the Hamburglar, seeing if he can maybe be a backup goaltender in Buffalo, at least a third string guy coming in 1 year, $700,000. The Sabres, does it concern you how quiet they were?
A little bit. They're at the point in their franchise where, you just signed Skinner to this monster deal, right, at 9.5. You've got,
I guess that you'd say that's their UFA.
Yeah, maybe
signing,
you can make that point, but I think now their franchise is ready to burst, just kind of like how Carolina, was, and they're ready to make the playoffs. They need to, and Florida is the same way, and they went out and made moves. We'll talk about that, but I think Buffalo, maybe not necessarily through free agency, but could have dealt. Ristolainen, we saw his name come up a lot. Maybe move him to bring in a nice offensive piece now that they got Montour back there.
And it's not to say that still can't happen.
No, exactly.
But yeah, I guess Skinner at $9 million a year. That's does it feel like an overpayment a little bit?
It feels like it, especially when you got Aho getting signed for less money
and like a Matt Duchene got less money.
Yeah,
who's a center,
right, and can put up the goals like. So, okay.
Yeah, it seemed like an overpayment, but you also, I guess you have the guy for 8 years, and if he produces for really well for the next 6, probably in years 7 and 8, it's movable, and $8 million is more like a $6 million contract now, so it might be, able to be shifted around. All in all, though, a little bit surprised, because the Sabres, to me, seemed like a team that needed to shake things up, and they haven't really at all. I mean, a Jeff Skinner re-signing isn't exactly shaking it up.
Right.
So I'd be concerned if I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan, because this team has toiled for too long. And so we'll see. Maybe there's something else in the plans, but nothing as far as we can see. So let's go Calgary Flames. They make really one big splash, and I guess it'd be signing Cam Talbot to a 1 year, $2.75 million deal. Does this obviously they're giving Cam Talbot an opportunity? He's coming in, and they think maybe Cam Talbot can play and be a 1A, 1B kind of guy along with David Rittich. That's really the only thing I can think of. Which they still have to sign David Rittich. Because now, of course, Mike Smith gone to Edmonton. So Calgary bringing Cam Talbot in, essentially what it looks like to try and be a number one goaltender. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I still think they're going to give Rittich the opportunity to be the number one there. But so stupid. Honestly, I don't understand the signing at all. If you had a guy in Mike Smith who... To all signs pointed to, he was actually willing to re-sign there or open to the possibility, right? He wasn't already talking about being out the door because he was the starter in the playoffs, looked really good doing it. I haven't seen anything out of Talbot where you're like, oh man, we should take this guy over Mike Smith. And they paid Talbot more money than Mike Smith. What a dumb freaking move.
Yeah. Unless it was that Mike Smith didn't want to be there, which to me wouldn't make sense. Why wouldn't he want to be with a better team?
Right, exactly. And not only that, I understand the coaching, connection there in Edmonton, but there's other options out there too that I would have felt more comfortable with, and you probably could have got cheaper. You probably could have gone and snagged Scott Darling, Cam Ward. Even reached a little further.
Find someone who can, if you're going to go do a project, maybe find somebody who I don't know, maybe has a better chance. I guess they're assuming that he was not such a bad team that maybe that's why he's taking a dip.
I guess, but
we're only 2 years removed from him being incredible.
Well, that's true. We're a couple years removed, but still, they overpaid for him, and luckily it's not like they, gave him a ridiculous term or anything like that. So
year.
They'll live and learn.
So you're grading on that.
I'm giving that one a D.
Okay, I'll say it's like a C minus. It's kind of a like, all right, it's likely not going to work out, but it could end up being just kind of your run of the mill signing.
Had they signed him to like maybe a $1 million contract, then I would have said, okay, yeah, C plus, low risk, high reward possibilities.
Right. Who else was going to give Cam Talbot 2.75?
Nobody. I think Carolina or Calgary just goaltenders ran out. I think maybe they were hoping for McElhinney or Mrazek or maybe even Varlamov to come there, and those guys went other places, and they were like, oh crap, we got to get somebody. Oh, hey, there's Talbot over there. Let's just snag him up.
Yeah. Well, Peter Mrazek re-signs with the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll move on to Carolina. For a 2-year, $6.25 million contract, a 3.125 hit. Peter Mrazek signs for just barely more than Cam Talbot, and Peter Mrazek proved last year that he definitely can be a good 1A, 1B goaltender.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now, when you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, obviously they no longer have McElhinney.
Nope.
So,
but they got this young kid from the AHL, the Charlotte Checkers, who led them to a championship, who looks really, really good. Highly touted prospect, Alex. I'm going to totally butcher this name.
Nedeljkovic?
Yeah, thank you. Let's just go with that.
Nedeljkovic?
Yeah, looks really good, and I'm excited to see him come up because I think he has a lot of talent and could be maybe not necessarily a superstar goaltender, but could be a guy who can give you solid 30 games this season.
Well, but they also traded for James Reimer. So
That's true, they did.
Don't forget about that trade. That bringing in Reimer, it was a great deal for the Panthers. But James Reimer comes in, and he's shown that he can at least be put in for a decent amount of games. You're going to get a guaranteed stinker like 1-3 with him, though. So I wonder, though, Carolina took in a couple goaltenders that had struggled at times, not McElhinney, but Mrazek. I wonder if maybe that culture turns him around a little bit, gives him some fire.
Yeah.
James Reimer's a great guy. Always like one of those guys that I just root for.
I did feel bad for him in Toronto.
A product of the Leafs, and he was the guy who was in net for that 3-goal third period explosion in Game 7, and everyone blamed him.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone blamed him.
Not his fault.
And it was just definitely not his fault. Hey, it's some of his fault, but there's other things that were other players' faults at that time, and coaching notwithstanding. So, James Reimer, a nice pickup for them. And then Sebastian Aho, 5 years, $42 million, an 8.454. That's 8.454.
Yeah, like
$1 million hit.
$1,000 a year underneath the next.
Right. And remember I said that, that was like exactly what I said. I said I would, in our last show, I said I would take what's the minimum or the maximum I can give them before I have to give up 2 first-round picks
next
instead
threshold.
of 1. Yeah. Just offer them that. And then as soon as they accept, you just move on to the next guy, and you do it to the next guy if they're willing to accept it. I think Aho is a little different. Sounded like he just wanted to play.
Yeah, and the big sticking one with this one was Bergevin giving him that $21 million in bonus money in the first 12 months.
Yes.
He's thinking, Don Waddell, the tightwad, doesn't have the money. He's probably going to have to borrow from the league to pay this.
Wad. He's not the one who's actually paying him.
He cut Rod Francis because he was paying him too much money. I know, but yeah. Yeah, they cut Ron Francis because they were paying him too much money and it wasn't working out. They cut their goalie coach's salary in half or something like that. Is ridiculous. But so yeah, the wallet book is a little tight in Carolina, and I think that maybe was why he got that big salary up front for those bonuses. But yeah, ultimately though, they would be the stupidest move in NHL history if you let a guy like Aho walk for first, second, and third rounder.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to do that. And I think they knew that they wouldn't do that either. But
yeah, well.
But you know what it does? I think Montreal goes, 5 years we can sign him. If he, he signed the offer sheet with Montreal. So obviously he was willing to go play there if they weren't going to match. And so maybe you're thinking, now he's a free agent in 5 years instead of 7.
Yeah, because when
8.
If he keeps going at this pace, he'll be worth 10, 11 mil. Right. And does Carolina want to pay up that money? Probably not.
Yeah, by this pace, he might be worth 12 or 13 because of the way that the cap goes up, especially when you get a 32nd team. That's going to give a boost to the cap. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens. Okay, Chicago. Their big move, signing Robin Lehner to a 1 year. I was surprised, 1 year, $5 million deal.
Yeah.
I was surprised that Lehner went with just a 1 year deal and left the multi-year deal out there.
Well, what's weird is I read a bunch of stuff about, and there's this really great article in The Athletic where he basically talks about, how Robin Lehner wanted to stay in the island, right? And I'm not sure if it was a matter of term or whatever, but my understanding was Lou Lamoriello was trying to do $3.5 to $4 million, and Lehner, of course, was like, hey, I want a couple more bucks than that because I'm worth it. I was just a Vezina nominee.
Sure, yeah.
And understandably so. What Vezina nominee goaltenders come back and taken that little of money in a contract? Never. So
you're not going to do it. Dumb.
Granted, we do understand his history. We understand that, he did split a lot of time with Greiss last season, so maybe that has a lot to do with his success. But still, but more to the point, though, when you're giving Varlamov $5 million and you're not willing to give a Vezina nominee $5 million too, that was just... I don't know if from maybe the get-go, they pegged Varlamov as like their guy. Like that's who we wanted long-term. We think he'll end up being better long-term than...
how much was Leonard's success due to the team's structure?
Right. And so maybe they're thinking
some of it.
Varlamov, a guy who was, on a crappy Colorado team a few years back and had good numbers. Maybe he comes in here now and now he puts up just freaking awesome numbers.
Yeah.
So that's my only thing. Now with Lehner in Chicago, what I think is, you're looking at probably the injury history here with Corey Crawford, and you're saying, how healthy is he going to stay? Can we rely on Crawford for the next 4 or 5 years to be a healthy guy, where the last couple seasons he's been playing 20-some, 30-some games? Probably not. So we go sign Lehner, see if it pans out fairly well, and if it does, then we give him a long-term deal and make him our goaltender for the next 5-7 years.
Okay, yeah. I do like that he bet on himself.
He did, yeah, I do.
And I can get on board with the idea of betting on yourself and saying, I'm worth. Not only am I worth 5, I'm worth more, so I'm going to go prove it by signing a 1 year deal, and I'm going to just go do it again. And maybe he signs a 3 or 4 year deal worth 6 next time. So good on him. He'll be a free agent again.
Right.
Honestly, you look at the Blackhawks. Do you see a playoff team in the Blackhawks?
They're a bubble team.
I'd say. Are they more likely to miss or make?
They're more likely to miss, for sure.
And I'm wondering at the deadline, does Robin Lehner become a guy who maybe they deal?
That's possible. Yeah.
So we'll be hearing lots of Robin Lehner rumors, I'm sure.
Or maybe Corey Crawford.
Or Corey
if he's
Crawford.
healthy.
If he's healthy, that's a big thing with Corey Crawford. One other signing that I do want to point out, Chicago Blackhawks make a nice little depth signing. They signed Ryan Carpenter.
Yeah.
He's a right winger. He played for the Vegas Golden Knights, was traded there from San Jose. And, he put up 18 points in 68 games last year. But a solid depth move, $1 million for the next 3 years. And one of those guys that, if you find a home in the right place on a fourth line, he's going to be a fourth line guy in Chicago. Maybe
heart and soul type of guy.
Maybe a third line kind of guy, but definitely a decent defensive guy. And so an interesting little signing, like one of those under the radar kind of signings that he'll probably be in the lineup regularly and does he help make a little bit of a difference where Chicago had some depth problems last year? Maybe addressing that with the Ryan Carpenter signing. The Colorado Avalanche. They did sign today Nikita Zadorov to a 1-year, $3.2 million deal. Of course, he was in Colorado before. He's just an RFA, but they lock him up, as well as Pierre-Edouard Bellemare from the Vegas Golden Knights, 2-year, $3.6 million deal. And then the big one, Jonas Donskoy from the San Jose Sharks. They signed him July 1st to a 4-year, $15.6 million deal. If you're counting at home, that's a $3.9 million cap hit. Your thoughts on what Colorado did? Oh, I guess we also have to go Tyson Barrie and Alex Kerfoot for Nazem Kadri and Nikita Zaitsev.
Yeah, what a trade. What a trade, huh?
And along with a couple picks, but
right, yeah, Kadri's going to work out real great on that second line. I'm pumped to see that. And from a Leafs standpoint, I'd be a little upset because this is a team from me. The Leafs, you look at them and they've been constantly pointed at over the last maybe season and a half, 2 seasons. We're like, oh, they're weak, they're easy to play against. They don't hit back as much. And you go and get rid of like your biggest hard hitting chip.
Yeah,
basically.
you go get rid of the idiot who.
Well, yeah. Well, then there's that
the
too.
Last 2 playoffs.
Sure, and maybe that's a Babcock thing because he's in Babcock's doghouse because of that sort of thing. But
he did say Kadri did come out and say, "I know for a fact I wasn't traded because of that."
Okay, well that's good to know. But yeah, you get a former 30 goal scorer to play in your second line, and now this gives you options, right? So if you're Colorado, right, you've got Landeskog, McKinnon on that top line. Maybe you put up Yost up there. I don't know what your game plan is, but now you can move Rantanen up from that first line down to the second line if you want. If you want to spread out the wealth because you have a solid second line center
right.
who can
Kadri
score, who
gets
can
to play
dish.
with Rantanen?
Yeah, freaking A, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Listen up, fantasy people, because that could be a steal later on down the road. And again, the trade, it brings in a little bit more depth. I like the Donskoy signing. He's going to be a great third line player for this team, which that was their biggest X factor was depth on the forward position past that top line. So
yeah,
you're just solving those problems.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and then finally your top 9 looks somewhat respectable. Adding Kadri, adding Donskoy, and really, I mean, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, not a bad guy to add to your fourth line.
No, veteran leadership.
I mean, sandpaper there. Yeah. The thing that we can hit on this, the Barrie Kadri trade too. It's just that it was you love to see trades where you go, that was exactly what both those teams needed to do.
Right? Yeah.
Like
exactly.
The Leafs needed a right-handed defenseman, and they had they had 3 top 6 centermans. And so, okay, we'll trade them away. And I mean, in reality, Alex Kerfoot not far off from being a top 6 center. He's definitely a top 9. He'll come in, he'll be their third line center, and then they bring. We'll get to the Leafs what they did, but they Alex Kerfoot replaces Kadri on the third line, and then not in the goal scoring way though. I think that's the real.
That's a little tough, but
I've watched Alex Kerfoot, but I wanted to get some Colorado Avalanche fan thoughts on what he did. I don't have my phone with me, but I went on Reddit and in the trade thread I asked, give me a scouting report on him, and people said he's got great hands, good speed, really really nice, like good at face-offs, but can't shoot the puck for his life. He'll get a breakaway and shoot it right in the chest, and he'll get a few lucky goals that go in off his butt into the net. So that was the scouting report on Alex Kerfoot via Reddit, via Colorado Avalanche fans. So
okay,
but all in all, you get your defenseman. Colorado gets their forward, but at the same time, both teams also replace the player that they lost. Colorado replaces Barrie with Zaitsev. Not exactly your ideal guy there, but it'll work. And they also have guys coming. They also took a defenseman in the draft with Byram.
Yeah.
And then, the Leafs deal their forward, but they also get a center back. And so really just a nice trade where, you see these teams and you're like, oh, they're so top heavy, or this team, has so much depth back here, and they make that move, and then everything kind of comes into
It's crazy to me that a couple of years ago we were almost writing Joe Sakic off as just a joke of a GM, and over the last couple seasons, he's basically turned this team into just a powerhouse for the next 10 years. Looking at that D core, it's crazy.
Incredible.
So, good on both teams for winning the trade, though.
Yeah.
So far.
I would say the Colorado Avalanche, we go ahead and give them a nice A- for what they were able to do. Like they did
for the trade.
To me, the trade, the Donskoy signing, they get Zadorov done. They lose Varlamov, but it doesn't really matter. You know, they
got Grubauer signed up, so I give them a solid B+.
Okay. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they made some moves. More or less, they lost everybody, though.
Yeah.
They lose Bobrovsky, they lose Duchesne, and they lose Panarin. Now, you know, they may have lost Panarin, but they gain a Nyquist.
Oh, boy. At half the cost, though.
Nyquist cost them 4 years at $22 million, $5.5 million hit. They also sign Korpisalo. They sign Adam Glendening. That's, you know, they do re-sign Ryan Murray to I think a really nice deal for Ryan Murray, a guy who's been kind of plagued by injury, but you know, 2 years at $9.6 million hit. That's a nice deal for him. The Nyquist signing, though. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
You watched him play for 6 or 7 years, maybe longer than that. Although, you know, the Wings waited a few years to bring him up. He was like 29 before 28
he and Tatar,
before he got up.
They ripen in the minors.
So Nyquist signs $5.5 million. What is he going to bring? His expectations going to be met by Nyquist.
Yeah, he's going to slot in, I would assume, right from the get on that top line. You know, I'm not sure. Boy, it's tough. You know, he's still got a good skating ability. He's still got good hands. But one thing about him, he's never been known for is scoring goals. Right? He's a pass first kind of guy. You know, initially I thought he does have some goal scoring abilities, but lately, the last couple seasons with the Wings, I've noticed that he seems like more of that pass first type player, and so you wonder what kind of guy you're going to get. What kind of guy you're going to get in Columbus, right? Because they don't have those elite goal scorers there. And I mean, granted, they didn't really in Detroit either, but, you know, Dylan Larkin, he was dishing the puck to him, and it seemed to work out pretty nicely for him. And who could blame him? I mean, you'd rack up points too, throwing pucks to him. But yeah, last season, 22 goals. So if you can get 20 and 25 out of Nyquist, I think at 5.5, it's a good number. It's a good deal, but
I think it's an appropriate number. Yeah. I just don't like that matchup for him if he needs to play on that top line. I don't like that matchup.
No, and I don't think he's suited for a top line. I think he is a better second line complementary top six guy. Granted, yes, he is a nice piece, especially, you know, in Detroit. He was able to move up and down when needed, but I think he's better slotted in a second line winger position now. This is going to be an opportunity now for Wenberg to step up and some other younger guys that say, hey, you know, you gotta put up or shut up at this point.
I think you've got Pierre-Luc Dubois up at the top, and then it's kind of wide open in terms of the center position. And I mean, of course, you know, Cam Atkinson's gonna put up big numbers. He'll score you near 30 goals every year. That's not a problem. He's not an issue.
Nope.
It's you know, guys like Brandon Dubinsky who's getting up there. This team has just kind of lost its identity, I think, with losing Bobrovsky, losing Panarin.
You had a lot of points go out the door. I mean, that's more or less the focus of anything else. And how do you replace those?
You
right?
lose Dzingel, you lose Duchesne.
Okay, so you say Dzingel and Nyquist, their production, right, is pretty much a wash to me at this point.
Okay, yeah.
But now Panarin, how are you going to replace his production? And I don't see Wenberg, you know, getting anywhere close to that in terms of that. No. And other guys, you know, I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois, I like him. I think he'll continue to grow a little bit. But again, it's going to have to come from the back end at this point, right? Because that's where all their chips are anymore, outside of Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cam Atkinson up front. So I think if this team continues to struggle, this could be an opportunity for them to move one of those pieces on the back end to say, hey, you know, we got some good D back there. Let's try to acquire a top six guy.
For sure. Would have been nice to have William Karlsson. Okay, so yeah, they've kind of been stuck. They've re-signed their guys. Columbus really, I mean, unfortunately for Nyquist, he was kind of well, we can't get anyone else. So
Consolation prize.
Yes. Like the consolation of the consolation.
Right.
Yeah, just a rough time. Okay, the Dallas Stars, they were an interesting one. They did
Yes.
some fun things. The Dallas Stars signed Joe Pavelski to a 3-year, $21 million contract, basically in the Patrick Marleau ilk. A little younger, so he should be able to last these 3 years, but he'll be 37 playing out that last year of his contract. And then Corey Perry signs a 1-year, $1.5 million deal with a bunch of bonuses. They also signed Andrei Sekera to a deal with some bonuses as well at a $1.5 million cap hit. The Dallas Stars bringing in some vets.
Yeah, really liking this. I mean, I love the Joe Pavelski signing a ton. I mean, it was sad to see him leave San Jose because he is one of those, again, like we talked about, heart and soul type of guys where, he's the face of that franchise, just like Big Joe. And, sad to see him go. But Dallas is a good fit for him because they desperately needed a good second-line guy. You're getting a 30-goal scorer out of him, and I don't really see his production slowing down that much, if any. And even at $7 million and he manages to put up 30 goals, frick, I'd rather pay him $7 million than Kevin Hayes right now.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and lucky for them, too. It's only 3 years, and they did it right before he turned 35, which is great because then they don't get stuck with that stupid clause if he retires or, whatever. Corey Perry, though, I love this one, too. This is a prove it again kind of contract. Go out there, put up some points, put up some goals, and, he could be a nice little depth guy on the third line where he's not counted on to be the guy like he was in Anaheim anymore. And, hey, there's a little motivation to say, prove the rest of the league wrong where he got written off by Anaheim. It was like, okay, not really written off because it was very heartfelt goodbye, but, just he could be a nice little piece for them.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I love it. And a great power play guy too. Ryan Hartman also acquired from the Philadelphia Flyers for the Dallas Stars. So another nice move, a third line kind of thing. And that was really Dallas's problem was their depth. Outside of that top line, they weren't getting as much production. Roop Hintz did come in and create some. I don't know if you want Hintz as more than a third line center in an ideal world. I think he's a really good third line center, and I think if you're going to win a cup, that's probably where you want to slot him. A couple of things that I did forget to mention before we move on to our next team, which is your Detroit Red Wings. Of course, Arizona did acquire Phil Kessel. That is
sure. We did skip over that.
We did skip over some of the trades. That's my fault. And they also acquired Carl Soderberg from the Colorado Avalanche. So a nice move. What do you think of the Kessel deal?
Kessel deal, I like it. I think Arizona desperately needed like a star player, right? They haven't really had that since. Oh man, I don't even know. You could go back as far as say Jeremy Roenick, Keith Tkachuk. I mean those guys.
I mean Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Yeah, okay. Okay. But I mean like a forward.
The thing is that he's just not a star because he's in Arizona, right? If he was on any other team, he would be probably considered.
But here's what I suggest, right? If you're Arizona, and listen up, marketing people, because I will freaking kill Arizona if they don't do this. You have a single ticket game, and I'm sure I've seen this on Twitter a couple times already, and it brought a little twinkle to my eye. But have a single game ticket for $81, right? You get the ticket and unlimited hot dogs. Call it the Phil Kessel package.
Dude, yes, please. Yes, please. So that would be genius. Also, Buffalo Sabres did bring in Colin Miller and Jimmy Vesey. So two other nice moves. I did say the Sabres were a little empty on the signings. They at least, Jimmy Vesey, I don't think he's much more than a third line guy. He can score you some goals.
I think Buffalo's thinking maybe this kid, gets back into form where he was when he was so highly touted from college, and it pays off. But if not, whatever. It's at least I got some depth there.
Yeah, and Colin Miller does help to shore up their defense a little bit.
And that's why you have the opportunity between him and Montour to possibly trade, Ristolainen if you want to.
Yeah. Yep. Carolina Hurricanes also bringing in. Of course, they got Patrick Marleau, but that quickly was bought out. But they traded for Eric Howla, and I really like that move for Carolina.
Yeah, good move.
A nice centerpiece. He play the wing and play center, and I think Carolina is the one team. Sometimes these teams kind of come out of nowhere and they surprise everybody. Well, it was more or less like finally they made the playoffs, but it was the players who produced that surprised, I think. And it's nice when you see those teams go out and continue to make moves and they don't rest on their laurels. Sometimes you see these teams and they're like, yeah, we've got a good team now. And they don't really do enough to build in some of the pieces. And so I do like that move.
Yeah. Be interesting, though, to see if they can get Justin Williams locked back up, because he's one of those, inspirational guys, just great leaders in the locker room that they have to have in there. I think he needs to come back and sign again.
Yeah. And he said he's probably leaning to playing, but they're going to wait.
Yeah, sure.
He's going to wait. Okay, let's go to your Red Wings. Red Wings signed a couple 2 year $6 million deals, one to Valtteri Filppula and the other to Patrick Nemeth, the defenseman. And then, of course, Calvin Pickard signs a 2-year deal, former Toronto Maple Leaf, Philadelphia Flyer. And your thoughts on what the Red Wings did?
Yeah.
Or didn't do?
Well, I didn't expect them to do much. Yzerman is, he said it when he came over here. He said, I'm not looking to build through free agency. This is going to be long and painful. I'm going to build through the draft. So, I understand the Patrick Nemeth move. He's a solid stay-at-home defenseman. And I think if you're going to pair him with maybe like, some of our younger D guys that, move the puck, skate a little bit, he's a solid guy to have back there protecting the net. In case, somebody does something stupid on the back end. And then it gives you a little bit of an opportunity, too, if you want to move a guy like Mike Green, you don't feel so bad or empty and have to rely more on younger guys as you're trying to, not only build for the future, but, slightly improve your team. And same said with Calvin Pickard, right? I like the signing. It gives the Wings a little bit of depth. Jimmy Howard's been, plagued with injuries over the last few years, most of his career. Yeah. So there's a possibility he might go down, and you've got a solid guy who can step in and play if you need him to. And Valtteri Filppula, this one was a little bit more puzzling one to me.
He obviously wanted to come back.
Right. I understand that. And, but at $3 million, I'm like, okay, maybe you overpaid for a guy who's at this point in his career is primarily a third line-ish, fourth line center type guy who kills penalties and can chip in on offense every once in a while. Because, you might get, I'd be happy if you get 25 to 30 points out of Phillips, right? That would be fine.
Yeah, he had 31 this last year.
Okay.
17 goals. So
right.
The 17 goals was actually his best season since 2013-14. That's
actually kind of shocking.
Yeah. His best goal total.
But I think maybe this might speak more towards the Wings' desire to put Athanasiou back on the wing, right? They just maybe tried at the end of the year putting him at center. It was fine, but it wasn't great. So maybe they just see, okay, this kid's better on the wing, and maybe we can throw him up with Larkin, the two fastest skaters we have, and just let him go out there and skate.
Gives you a little more freedom to do some things. Yeah. And at $3 million, he's easily tradable if you needed to trade him, or you could put him in the minors, and he might have I don't think he has a no.
Well, he's one of those 35 contracts. I don't think you can move those guys.
Oh,
can you?
35 plus?
Yeah.
Okay, to the Edmonton Oilers. What do you want to grade your team there for what they did?
Wings, C+.
Yeah, I'm going to actually give them a B.
Okay.
Because I like that they didn't do much.
Okay. Well, in that aspect,
they essentially did exactly you have to get somebody because players have to play for you.
Yeah.
They go and they get guys that they know, first off, and Steve Yzerman was there when Filppula was there, and Filppula played for him in Tampa, right?
Yeah, he did.
He played for him. Didn't play with him.
I understand that for sure.
So that move makes a lot of sense. And then Nemeth, he's only 27 years old, or 27,
yeah.
So I do like the move because maybe he's a guy who can help along some of your younger defensemen.
Right.
Yeah.
The only
and you're probably going to lose a few defensemen here.
Sure.
I think he's kind of a replacement for Cronwall.
Yeah, maybe. And we don't know if Cronwall will still come back. He still may. The only problem I have with maybe these few signings is now you're taking up roster spots where I would have liked to have seen maybe more opportunity for some of the younger players to step in and see what they can do now. But
a bunch of guys are going to get dealt at the deadline.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think he'll, like a Mike Green, he's gone at the deadline.
No,
or
absolutely.
sometime during the season. So is
Trevor Daley.
Trevor Daley, yeah.
Maybe you find somebody to take Erickson at the deadline too, but probably not.
Yeah. Okay, Edmonton Oilers. Alex Chason signs a 2-year, $4.3 million deal. And Mike Smith, the big signing for them, at a $2 million cap hit, but there's bonuses involved. Could get him up to 3.75. And those are really the big moves that they made. They didn't do a whole lot here, mostly because they weren't really able to because of the salary cap. But they do go out and bring in their goalie. And this is Ken Holland, you know very well. And, I think that he's probably comfortable with Mike Smith doing some Team Canada stuff with him. Thoughts on what the Oilers did? And I don't think they made any trades. So.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to just because of their cap situation. They signed a bunch of depth guys. We talked about it. Alex Chason, Thomas Yurko comes in, Brad Malone, these third, fourth liner guys. But the Mike Smith signing to me, I enjoyed just because one, I'm not really sold on their goaltending situation right now as it is. And so, Mike Smith can provide, 1 year, if not maybe get signed for another one after this season, a little bit of a stopgap because he is a guy who could come in and take over that goaltending situation, if he pans out pretty well.
Yeah, we'll see if he can stay healthy all year.
That's the key. And he has familiarity with Dave Tippett. He played with him in Arizona, and it was
had his best years with him.
Good relationship. So, who knows? Maybe he gets in for 40 games, 50 games this season and, helps get Edmonton close to a playoff spot.
All right. The Florida Panthers, Sergei Bobrovsky, a 7-year, $70 million deal. Brett Connolly, a 4-year, $14 million. And Anton Strawman, a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. So some big signings. All in all, those three players rack up a $19 million in cap space for the Florida Panthers. Ooh. Your thoughts on what the Panthers did?
Love everything they did, honestly.
Well as bringing in Scott Darling.
Yes.
They brought in your boy.
And bought him out. I loved, first off, Achari, probably my most underrated signing.
Noel Acciari, yes. Yeah. Noel Acciari is out of Boston.
Yeah, great depth guy that they had in Boston. He was fantastic, I think, for that team, which is, part of the reason why they got so far in the playoffs was their depth on that third and fourth line. Yep. And they got out and get him for under a couple $1 million, which was shocking.
$1.6 million.
Yeah, very shocking.
Some bonuses, but yeah.
Sure, yeah. So he'll be great because, again, Florida really needed depth, on that third and fourth line to produce. And Sergei Bobrovsky, they get their guy now. We talked about it a little bit on our last show about, overpaying for goaltenders. So we'll see if this pans out for him. They get the guy they wanted to all along. I'm not quite sure if paying $10 million for a starting goaltender is worth it now in the NHL. But
I think it's worth it right now.
Right now, sure.
Is it going to be? Is this contract going to be worth it in 4 years?
Right, when other guys are up for more money.
If he's become like Corey Schneider.
Yeah, or even like what I'm referring to is he's blocking other guys from getting money and then bringing in other pieces. That ability, right? I mean, we don't know where the cap's going to be. We don't know where the new CBA is going to go. So who knows? But like the signing, it's great that they got their guy. They needed an upgrade in goal because that was their biggest problem. I think they were number 2 on the power play, number 10 on the penalty kill or something like that. So their special teams were great. Anton Strawman maybe overpaid a little bit, but again, they needed a little bit of help on D. So
and especially a defenseman who can play defense.
Right, and that's his specialty now.
Yeah.
He's not so much the offensive guy he once was, but he's a good defensive defenseman. And Brett Connolly, this is a guy who had a little falling out, then came over to Washington after being a first-round draft pick in Tampa, proved it that he's still capable of scoring some goals, and he could be a second, third-line guy. I don't know where you want to slot him in yet, but maybe this makes a guy like Mike Hoffman or Danendoff just tradable this season, so they can go out and save a little bit of cap space and do with it what they will in the years to come with guys that need new deals.
Okay. The LA Kings did nothing, signed Martin Ferk, so that freaking sucks.
Sorry, Red Wings.
They're going to continue to be bad. And Minnesota Wild, they made some interesting moves, I'd say. They they do sign Ryan Hartman. And then Matt Zuccarello, a 5-year, $30 million deal, $6 million cap hit for a 31-year-old Matt Zuccarello.
How is this team getting younger? How are they supposed to be getting younger when they keep signing these old Eric Stahls and Matt Zuccarellos? Now, I don't hate Zook at all. He's a good player.
He had 37 points last year. I know it was in 46 games, but I mean, it just seems like, all right, he had a year where he got injured. A couple times he was hurt.
A couple times, yeah.
And then you signed him to a 6-year deal, a 5-year deal, worth a lot of money. Yeah, Matt Zuccarello, they told him he's like a snake or something like that when he was playing, or a lizard or some crap like that. Did you see that? I mean, he's fine. I think that he at least maybe his shelf life increased because of the way that the league has gone, just like all out speed. I just really don't like the length of that contract.
No, and it'll be okay for the first couple of years, but I think those last few years, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, to me, well, like you're right. Like, what are the Minnesota Wild doing?
Yeah, we don't know if they're rebuilding, they're retooling, or if they're just trying to make a push, but they're not doing anything that anybody can figure out. That's for sure.
Yeah, they've got a lot of old guys.
Yeah, a lot of old players. So. Good luck. Maybe now you finally figure out if you want to trade Jason Zucker now. I don't know. Maybe he's too young for this team. I'm not sure.
Yeah. He just might be. He submits a 10-team no trade list as Jason Zucker, so that can create some challenges. But I understand that Kadri gave a no trade list, and Calgary was on his list.
On the list,
they were going to trade him for probably a Brody and something. And
yeah, interesting.
And I think the deal from Colorado was better, so I'm happy about it. But that's really the move that they made. Let's move on to the Montreal Canadiens. Oh, and I'll give that particular deal. That's like, man, it's a hard C+. Like, it has some ability to help you, but it also is going to come. It's going to come crashing down quickly, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think you're going to see him getting these 30-point years and going, wow, he's got 38 points. And
well, when everybody around him is getting older and he has nobody to pass the puck to, what are you going to do? He's just going to get worse.
Yep. The Montreal Canadiens, they signed Sebastian Aho and lose him because the Carolina Hurricanes match. So instead, they go out and they sign Ben Chariot to a 3-year, $10.5 million deal, defenseman. And then also they bring in Keith Kincaid, who was traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets, I believe.
That's true.
Yes. And so they bring him in here for 1 year. And then they also signed Nick Cousins today to a 1-year, $1 million deal. They tried to be active. They tried to do something. And it was thwarted by evil Tom Dundon. You jerk.
Yeah, just some depth signing here. I like Keith Kincaid. He's a fine backup. Not a fine backup, but he's okay. He's better than Niemi was last year, that's for sure. So I guess you can consider that an upgrade in net. I'm not really sure if you're going to give him more than 10, 15 games anyways, but we'll see.
Sure.
Yeah, Ben Chariot, Chariot, whatever you want to call him.
Chariot, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Ben Chariot.
I mean, honestly, he's a number 5 defenseman on a team.
They overpaid hard. I don't understand. Like, I mean, for what they were going to give Aho, which was a great payment, and then to go overpay Chariot,
give this C-.
Okay, the Nashville Predators signed Matt Duchene, 7 years, $56 million. I love this signing. He finally gets to Nashville. They tried to get him forever. They actually had him for a minute during that 3-way trade that they did with Ottawa. I think in the end, all this works out for the Nashville Predators, and they get their guy. They get him at a good cap hit, $8 million. He'll be 36 years old when this contract is up. It's the perfect timing for them. He'll be 35. It's a 7-year deal, sorry. And so, really, it's I think a great deal for everyone involved here.
Yeah, love it. He's building a home right now in Nashville, so he's a country guy, plays guitar. Now, the only question for Nashville now is, what do you do with Kyle Turris? Are they going to try to move him? Are they going to just hope that he works out again and have 3 pricey centers? But now my bigger question too is Duchene. Is he first or second line center on this team? Does he slot him behind Johansson or above him?
I mean, I would think the hope is that he slots above him, but I don't think it matters. So. I think you're looking at like Tavares Matthews very light.
Sure.
You know, you've got two guys who are pretty equal, and then you have a third guy who is really a 2-3. So if you have any injuries, they can all slot up into the top 6. But I think ideally you go. You've got. I don't think there really is much of a like. This is line number 1. This is line number 2. It's more
definitely not.
Who
it
are you going to
anymore,
rely on? Maybe.
I guess maybe let me ask then. Who plays with Forsberg then? Is it Duchesne or Johansson? So.
Yeah, I think I don't know because Johansson has played with him,
right?
And so I think the obvious, like the.
But you want more out of Forsberg still,
right?
You're like, oh man,
I think so. You're right. You probably
give Duchesne a try.
The New Jersey Devils, they trade for PK Subban, and that was their massive move that they did, giving up pretty much just a few peanuts and a first round pick.
Yeah, good move.
No first round pick, a couple second round picks, right? So
yeah. Because Nashville needed to move salary.
A phenomenal move by the New Jersey Devils. Probably the best move made in this offseason. He's going to change that locker room. We did talk about the trade in the last show. You can check it out. But Wayne Simmons signs with the Devils a 1-year, $5 million deal. And for this New Jersey Devils team, I feel like this may be the perfect fit.
Yeah. I think so.
I think he might be able to play alongside Taylor Hall.
It's possible on that top line.
Power play.
Yeah.
You put Wayne Simmons in front. You got Taylor Hall. You get those hands. I mean, say what you want about Wayne Simmons, but he still has good hands.
Yeah. I think there's 2 reasons you bring in a guy like Wayne Simmons, right? One, we know the leadership ability. What was that award? He just won the NHL awards for best leader, the Mark Messier award. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we know his leadership ability, and I think
We Feel Bad for You award.
Yeah, and I think for a team that, just brought in, Jack Hughes and is trying to get a little bit younger and rebuild here, he's a great mentor to have in the locker room. But then 2, he's a great power forward type guy. Now, the league has sort of died out a little bit in terms of power forwards anymore, but, this is a perfect opportunity for him to go out and prove that he can still be a threat in a top 6 role. And so maybe, he goes out and puts up 20 and 20, and then New Jersey's like, okay, great, let's give him another deal.
Yeah.
For 3 years.
Yeah, I'm hoping for him. I'm hopeful for him. I hope that it works out. He's kind of your Patrick Maroon and him similar, but just Wayne Simmons younger and a
little bit more production.
Has had more production over the course of time. But I think after what you saw him do with St. Louis in the playoffs, if he gets an opportunity in the playoffs, he could be a monster. And I think that's what they're betting on.
Yeah, give that one a B.
The New York Islanders, take a guess at what the last trade that they made.
The last trade. I wouldn't even know.
The last trade they made was with Toronto to acquire Matt Martin on July 3rd, 2018.
All right.
So it has officially been more than 1 year since Lou Lamoriello has made any trades.
Can't say I'm shocked.
It's just interesting. They make 3 pretty big splashes, re-signing 2 of their own. Jordan Eberle to a real team-friendly contract, 5 years, $27.5 million. That's $5.5 million cap hit. And then Anders Lee signs 7 years, $49 million. That's a $7 million cap hit. So they keep their captain. Thank the Lord. They don't have to get a third captain. And then Semyon Varlamov comes in and is their new goaltender. 4 years for $20 million, a $5 million cap hit. So him and Thomas Greiss will share the net. Yeah. Thomas Greiss gets to share the net with someone else.
Yeah, 3rd year.
He is the consummate backup.
He is.
Like, what a guy. You're our starter now. Nope, you're the backup again. And he just keeps on doing his thing, and he's always been pretty good.
And hasn't complained one bit either. Haven't heard one peep about him.
Probably, maybe he's good.
Well, that's possible, too.
No, he's German.
Now, I'm not sure, too. Anders Lee, right? He didn't sign until after Panarin signed in New York, so you wonder sometimes, because you heard all these rumors about the Islanders trying to make a push, right? So
they were trying to sign Panarin.
Yeah, so I wonder if they're like, oh crap, we couldn't sign Panarin, let's go get Anders Lee locked up because now we need some offense, or Anders, hey, why don't you hold off? We're going to try to sign Panarin, and then we're going to work your deal around it. Like, I wonder which one of those scenarios were really going on.
I think it was probably likely the second.
Okay.
They were trying to keep Anders, they have the cap space to do it.
Sure.
So they're trying to keep Anders Lee. I think that Jordan Eberle really did them a favor. $5.5 million for Jordan Eberle. When you think Jordan Eberle or Matt Zuccarello, who do you want?
Oh, Eberle all day.
And they got him for $500,000 less per year. And he's also
younger.
2 years younger.
Yeah,
And they got him
Eberle
for
in the
same
playoffs?
exact length of deal.
Right. Eberle in the playoffs was great for them.
I think he's just coming into his own. I think that he was probably mismanaged horribly in Edmonton.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Who hasn't been. So, yeah, I think it's a great deal. I like the moves for the Islanders in terms of what they did. I just don't really think they added enough to really, like, this last year
Take
was
them to the
such
next level.
Well, yeah, right. This last year was that year where it was like, no one believes in us. Let's go out there. Barry Trotz got them all fired up, and they were able to go do something that no one expected them to do. Well, next year, you know what? They almost won their division. Do you think that teams are going to come out and underestimate this team next year? No, they're going to be going out and going. This team was in the second round last year.
Swept Pittsburgh.
Yes. And so no one's going to be caught off guard by them. And there's not the, like, we were screwed by you kind of thing anymore. Anders Lee signed in New York, so you don't get that this year.
Right.
So I do think that the Islanders maybe take a step back. I don't think that it'll be necessarily out of the playoffs, but there are some other teams coming in that Metropolitan division.
Oh, for sure. And one of them is
the New York Rangers, who acquired what they got
acquired a lot.
Jacob Trouba from the Winnipeg Jets, and then they also signed Artemi Panarin. So there's your two big moves.
Let's not forget about Capo Caco.
And of course, yes.
gosh.
Of course, the draft,
Yes.
Capo Caco. New Jersey Devils, yeah, they got Jack Hughes, yeah. So Artemi Panarin signs for 7 years, $81.5 million. That's an $11.6 million cap hit. He is now the second highest paid player.
What is it, like
in the NHL?
$8,000 more than Matthews?
Matthews, yeah.
Just to have that bragging right.
Just to have it. Go ahead. You're also old, so you get it, like you get that because you're a UFA. And then, of course, Jacob Trouba, who still needs a contract for the Rangers, but
He'll get one.
what are your thoughts on this Panarin signing?
Boy, you know what? I don't mind it, honestly, because to me, you look at him in Columbus, right? I mean, maybe, they probably overpaid a couple bucks, but again, I keep hearing that, some teams like Columbus were trying to offer as much as $13, $14 million for him.
He obviously did not want to play there.
Right. So, yeah, when you're turning down that kind of money to say, oh, no, I'd rather be the second highest paid player in the league and play here than to be the highest over here. So, when I looked at him in Columbus and even in Chicago, right, he's a line driver. There's not many wings that can say that they're wingers that can say they're line drivers, and he, Patrick Kane, Ovechkin, they're the select few of those guys that really can produce on their own, regardless who's playing at center or on the other wing. So I think just to get their guy, New York, yeah, maybe they overpaid a little bit because I wouldn't have been more comfortable giving him more than $10 million, but still, he's gonna freaking be great there now. Does he play with Zibanejad? Do they go find him another center? Who knows? But I think now this gives, the city of New York something to smile about a little bit outside of that draft pick and Trouba trade.
Yeah, they may be a sleeper for the playoffs.
They could. Absolutely.
Let's go Ottawa Senators. I did make a mistake earlier. I will admit it. I know it doesn't happen often, but Nikita Zaitsev wasn't dealt to the Colorado Avalanche. It was, of course, Calle Rosen. Zaitsev and Connor Brown dealt to the Ottawa Senators. And in exchange for like Ben Harper and Cody Ceci and Aaron Lucic.
And Zaitsev, I heard today in a news conference that he waived his no trade clause to go there.
Yes,
which was kind of shocking to me. I don't know if it's that he
didn't want to be in Toronto.
Well, I knew that, but I mean, like, is that really the only team that they could find to take him? It's like
maybe,
or did he just not want to move that far? And so it's like, okay.
And they also. The Leafs needed to take somebody from Ottawa who was they needed to be able to deal Cody Ceci, and I think that probably the Leafs were. It was just a match made in heaven.
Sure.
I mean, Cody Ceci makes exactly what Zaitsev made this year. Like the Leafs re-signed Cody Ceci to a 1 year, $4.5 million deal, which is what Zaitsev makes, and so it kind of all made sense. The Senators were busy though. They signed Anthony Duclair. They re-signed. A bunch of re-signings that they had. But Ron Hainsey and Tyler Ennis also come over from Toronto, both signing 1 year deals. Hainsey getting $3.5 million. Pretty good for a guy who's 38 years old.
Yeah, he's going to be the guy that's going to, mentor those younger guys.
Shabbat. I think he's going to play with Shabbat.
It wouldn't shock me. Yeah.
It'd be a great move. And, of course, Ottawa's new coach, former Toronto coach. So
there you go.
They bring in Zaitsev, Connor Brown, Ron Hainsey, and Tyler Ennis all coming over from Toronto. So basically... Toronto's farm team gets a little bit richer.
Yeah, give that a...
That's how he gets it. Take him a second.
That's funny.
Ottawa.
That's funny.
So cute.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's they did what they needed to do. I think that it's a deal that works out for everybody. I think that they kind of... Ottawa's kind of... Remember, like, Ottawa was like, oh, yeah, hey, we'll help you with Dion Phaneuf, too. Like, they're just the team that the Leafs call, hey, we got another guy we screwed up on. We signed him to a bad deal. We need you to take him.
Oh, my gosh. Did you hear over the weekend at the Rolling Stones concert about Eugene Melnick ran into... I can't remember.
Some MP, yeah.
The politician. What's her name?
PM,
Lisa McLeod, I think that's her name.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
anyways,
She told him that he was an effing idiot or something.
Yeah, effing loser. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Just too funny.
Yikes. Okay, the Philadelphia Flyers, they have made some moves. Obviously, they acquired Kevin Hayes. They got Matt Niskanen from Washington for Radko Gudas. They got Justin Braun from San Jose, Tyler Pitlick from Dallas. And then they go and they sign Kevin Hayes to that fatty 7-year, $50 million deal. They get Travis Sanheim relocked up. They sign Brian Elliott again, and that's pretty much the story on the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, they made small moves, but your thoughts on what the Flyers have been able to do this offseason?
Yeah, a D for me right now.
They've done a lot.
But they're getting a D grade for me because it's not so much about quantity as it is quality, right? I like the Brian Elliott signing because when healthy, he's good.
He's a decent goalie. Yeah,
he's good. And so
backup Carter Hart.
Exactly. You get a veteran guy who comes in there and mentors a young Carter Hart. Great signing. Love it. Kevin Hayes overpaid by at least a solid $1 million for that, and that contract's going to really, for a guy who's big, going to slow down. Yeah, exactly.
Will not age well.
He will not. After 3, I think in 3 years we're going to look back and be like, ooh, what the frick did we do?
Maybe a Milan Lucic kind of deal.
Well, they better hope the new CBA comes with a buyout clause because they might have to use it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, yes, I would agree. The Philadelphia Flyers kind of did let's really just shuffle up the bottom and we'll leave the top. It's been a while since the Flyers have really done a lot to acquire a top level talent.
Yeah,
like they made that move with the St. Louis Blues and traded away Braden Shen, and that worked out really well for them.
Yeah, Leterre, very, very good, very good.
But yeah, they really haven't done much to shake up the top 6. I would say, they lose Wayne Simmons. I mean, Kevin Hayes is in the top 6, but I think ideally on a really good team, Kevin Hayes is your third line center. But they're paying him $7 million a year, so he definitely can't be their third line center. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins, they signed their big splash. Brandon Tanev, a 6-year, $21 million deal. That's $3.5 a year, and that's other than that, they traded away Phil Kessel. They acquire much maligned Alex Galchenyuk. And do the Pittsburgh Penguins, have they addressed their issue with not having the offense anymore?
Not at all. Brandon Tanev, I absolutely hated.
I don't mind the move.
I hated it.
No, yeah, you hate it.
I hated it. I think I didn't so much mind the money as I hated the term, right? This is a guy to me that is not going to be in your top 6 at all. You're paying him 6 years, and for a team that's cap strapped right now,
he did have 29 points this last year.
Oh, 29. Oh boy.
For a defenseman though, a 30-point defenseman.
No, he's a winger.
3.5. Oh yeah, he's a winger.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking he's a defenseman?
Because there's Tanev in Vancouver who's a defenseman, so that's probably what you're thinking of.
Whoops.
Yeah, that's what I thought first when I signed this. I'm like, wait, how the frick? And so
it's the off season,
right? So at $3.5 million, this guy's going to be on your third line, and he's going to be sitting there for the next 6 years. Like, how are you addressing the offense for a guy that had one decent season? Decent season in Winnipeg.
And this is his best season.
Right. Every other season, 18, 10 points maybe at best.
18 points, yeah.
So what guy are you going to get who hasn't really proved anything, more than one good season, and you give him 6 years? What the frick? C-. Get out of here.
Jim,
Bye.
Well, sounds like you want to give it an F. Jim Rutherford has kind of he's in 2 years ago Sakic territory. We're like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah,
we all had visions of how this
Jack
team
Johnson didn't understand it.
Weird,
hasn't panned out. I mean,
bad signings. I mean, he's always had these bad signings.
I didn't mind the trade so much with the Phil Kessel trade because they get a good prospect. They get a guy, Alex Galchenyuk, who still has good potential. He's still a decent hockey player, so you're not completely losing out. And that's why they're only getting a C- from me right now. So,
okay, let's go. Next team up is the
San Jose
Sharks, and San Jose. They have signed a lot of guys. I don't know why that just went away. There we go. Nope, it's not going away.
Nope, you messed up. You just messed up. Cap friendly. It's broken.
Cap friendly. I broke cap friendly. Crap.
Yeah. Okay. Timo Meier, right? 4 years, $24 million, 6 a season for 22-year-old kid. I'm a big fan of it. Love this kid. He has a lot of potential. I think he's a great second line guy. So at $6 million, I think, you're going to get well worth your production out of him. But the big signing, Erik Karlsson, 8 years, $92 million, 11.5 per. Wow.
Yeah. He's now the 4th highest paid player in the league, highest paid defenseman in the NHL, and it is coming off a relatively down year. A down last year and a half.
Granted, he did have surgery in the offseason, so...
Yes.
But the bigger concern for me, and this is why I'm giving San Jose a C+. Yes, you got the guy you traded for locked up. That counts for something. Timo Meier...
Cost you an extra first-round pick.
Right. For a potential guy, if he's healthy, a talent like that, sure, okay, that's probably worth it. But the fact that between Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, and Vlasic, right, the next at least 6 years, you've got all 3 of these guys locked up until Burns' deal gets out. You've got, roughly $27 million tied up in these 3 guys. For one, Burns is 34 years old, right?
Yeah,
he's got to start slowing down at some point, his production like that.
Yeah, but maybe, he's already, according to Drew Doughty, he already can't play defense, so there's that.
Right, so there's that.
But maybe it's that's just not the kind of player that he is. Like, he's your power play specialist. He's, that's the kind of guy that he'll kind of float back.
And his minutes are probably going to start to diminish a little bit. Yeah. They're going to probably try to pump Karlsson into that lineup a lot more. We did see it with, St. Louis this past season, having 2 solid guys that could play 25, 30 minutes a night, pay dividends for them, and maybe that's what San Jose's hoping Burns and Karlsson could do. I don't see it. And then you got to wonder what kind of Karlsson you're going to get. Are you going to get the injury-plagued one, or do you finally get the healthy one that can play a whole season? Because if that's the case, great. This deal's going to look really good for, 5 years. If he's healthy, well, I wouldn't say going to look really good, but it's going to be fine for them.
Yeah.
But to have that much money tied up in 3 defensemen instead of 3 forwards,
it's not necessarily that all that money is tied up in Erik Karlsson. It's the other 2 that is a little concerning. But let's go to the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues, they win the Stanley Cup, and I felt like in terms of July 1st draft, any movement, they were one of those teams that went, we won the Cup. We don't need to make any moves.
Yeah, why rock the boat?
They re-signed Carl Gunnarsson to a real team-friendly 2-year, $3.5 million deal. They signed Derek Pouliot 1 year, $700,000. Like, Sammy Blaze signs a 1-year deal. So they don't do a whole lot. I'm wondering, like, to me, the St. Louis Blues weren't your stereotypical, like, wow, that was a powerhouse team that just won the Cup. They rode something special to the Stanley Cup final. So to me, I'm wondering if their lack of moves right now is going to come back to bite them later. Like, they didn't do enough to shake it up, to keep the team hungry, and you maybe you're being too loyal to certain guys.
Maybe that could happen, but again, I think they proved the value in having good goaltending and having solid defense back there to move the puck. And so, if you can get Alex Pietrangelo signed up next season and get him extended, which they probably will get him extended. Not sure what term, but it's probably going to be too long now because he's 30 by the time he signs that deal. But, these 2 guys are going to be great for the franchise for the next 5-6 years. So now they just got to work on Binghamton, right? What kind of deal did you get him? He's an RFA. He hasn't signed yet. Are you going to give him a long-term contract, which I'm sure he probably wants that 8-year deal? But if you're...
Yeah, who doesn't?
Right. But if you're Binghamton too, because St. Louis in their back pocket is saying, oh well, you only did it for one season.
What if Binnington is like 25 years later, Jim Carrey?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that you got to worry about, right? That one hot season. So if you're
and Jim Carrey, it was that lockout year. There was only 48 games, so he's unbelievable through
Right.
48 games.
Right. Binghamton, small sample size, right? So, I mean, granted, I believe Binghamton is not the same as Jim Carrey. I think he's going to be fine.
Sure.
But I would rather take, a little bit more money, give him, $4.5, $5 million for 3 years.
Yeah.
And let him go prove it, and then you can extend him for another 5 years after that if you want, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good goaltending. They got solid D, so I don't really think you need to make too many more moves. Again, the formula worked pretty good for him last season, so just keep at it, and then maybe at the deadline you go try and pick something up.
They'll probably re-sign Patrick Maroon out.
Probably, yeah.
He hasn't signed anywhere yet. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they signed Curtis McElhinney to a 2-year, $2.6 million deal. Really like that move. A nice backup goaltender that can really take pressure off Andrei Vasilevsky. Didn't really like... who was their backup?
Louis Domingue.
Louis Domingue, yeah. He
horrible.
wasn't good. Even though he won like 10 in a row, he still wasn't that good.
No, his save percentage was like .870 for those 10 games.
They signed Luke Witkowski to a 2-year deal, former Red Wing, right? And then Braden Coburn to
and
a 2-year deal.
Lightning.
Love the deal, Braden Coburn, 2-year, $3.4 million. Getting Braden Coburn under at 1.7 a year. That's a nice move by the Lightning. I like it. It's a very movable contract too if they ever.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and then Cedric Paquette signs 2 years with $3.3 million. I could leave that deal. I could have let. I think that Paquette will probably be a player they look to move. I just production wise, he hasn't really ever produced a whole lot. He's had some glimpses of greatness here and there. Not really even greatness, but just he plays well with friends. I think so.
Okay.
They keep him around.
Well, hey,
but I think that he's maybe a guy that when you need some space. 1.65, you're going to go, he's like the Connor Brown of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
That extra little chip
we need some space. We need to deal you. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like all these signings. I think they went out and addressed goaltending depth a lot. I mean, Spencer Martin, Curtis McElhinney, Scott Wedgwood. They went and got guys that they know can play, third or fourth down the road, and if injuries catch up with him. But McElhinney, even more impressive. They give him 2 years, which is what he probably wanted more than anything else. So he gets some, some stability back there, and he's a guy too. So you can put him in for 30 games this season and give Vasilevsky some rest.
Yeah, exactly.
And
doesn't have to be exhausted.
No, and the bigger question is, how much is Braden Point going to cost him? So we'll see.
The Toronto Maple Leafs, they were busy. 5 players acquired by trade. They had Cody Ceci, Ben Harper from the Ottawa Senators, and Aaron Luchuk, and then Tyson Barrie and Alex Kerfoot from the Colorado Avalanche. They subsequently go and sign Kerfoot to a 4-year, $14 million deal, Cody Ceci to a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. They signed Jason Spezza from the Stars, just a UFA, 1 year, $700,000 with no bonuses. That's the league minimum. Said he came there because he wanted to win a cup with his hometown. And then they do go out and they re-sign Martin Marincin. And then Andreas Johansson and Kasperi Kapanen both signed deals. Johansson, 4 years, 13.6. Kapanen, 3 years at 9.6. So both those guys get locked up. And they re-signed Michael Hutchinson. So the Leafs pretty busy.
Very busy.
And I'll throw some thoughts out there.
Please.
Immediately is just that obviously they were able to get themselves out of cap hell by trading Patrick Marleau. They did have to give up a first-round pick. My thought was at least, hey, if he had been under contract 3 years ago, would you have been willing to trade a first-round pick for Patrick Marleau? I think the answer is probably yes.
Probably yes.
So at some point, yeah, you paid a first-round pick for Patrick Marleau, and I think by and large, you look at that deal and you go, I mean, it was kind of a failure. Like, would they have made the playoffs the first year that he was there? Maybe not. And where they played Washington in the playoff. But, I mean, it's not like he stopped them from, like he helped them win a series or anything. They didn't win any playoff series with him.
Nope.
So, by and large, I think kind of you can say what you want about helping to develop guys and their personal lives, but I think by and large, a deal that is regrettable. But nevertheless, it happened. getting Kapanen and Janssen signed for under $3.5 million looks pretty good.
Very good.
I mean, both those guys at the end of this next year, I mean, they're going to slot higher up the lineup.
Got pretty good ceilings
Yeah.
for both these guys. So at that cost for the next 3-4 years, I'm all on board for that.
Yep. And then you've got Alex Kerfoot signed $3.5 million for the next 4 years. There's your third line center, and that is the perfect cost for a third line center. A guy that you could move up and down the lineup. He can play the wing a little bit if he needs to as well. So he can move up into your top six. Mostly playing on that third line, though, I think. And then Cody Ceci just kind of replaces Zaitsev. And, who knows? I think Cody Ceci is going to be the player that Mike Babcock turns around.
I hope so.
He's going to turn him into something. Because he had a lot of... He was a first-round pick.
Yeah, he was highly touted coming out. Yeah.
And he
stuck in a horrible organization.
Times he's looked good. I think Mike Babcock is going to take him. He's going to turn him into something special. He
doesn't have that pressure anymore either, right? When you come in Ottawa, right, you're playing behind Carlson. He was the big name defenseman behind Carlson after being drafted in the first round.
True.
So
that's true.
He leaves there now, and now he's sitting behind a whole bunch of other guys, and he doesn't have to go out there and perform or prove that he is that first round talent. He can just lay low on the third line and get coached up by Babcock and learn from some other veteran guys. So
yeah, I love it for him. The Vancouver Canucks, they acquired JT Miller from the Tampa Bay Lightning. They gave a first round pick for JT Miller. That was maybe expensive.
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
Nope, didn't like it either.
But they do sign Tyler Myers to a fatty 5-year, $30 million deal.
Didn't like that one either.
They lock up Alex Edler for a couple more years at $6 million a year. And that's pretty much the Vancouver Canucks offseason so far. Obviously, you're not a fan of it.
Yeah, I give this a C+. I like the Edler contract. He's still a very serviceable defenseman.
He's only 33.
Yeah, still moves the puck well, got good feet. Tyler Myers, on the other hand, I wouldn't have given him more than, I would have gave him the $6 million, but not any more than 3 years.
Yeah, and
he's too slow, in my opinion.
Maybe some of it is you just had to give him those years in order to get him.
You did. Yeah, absolutely you did it. He's got some defensive issues. Maybe it works out a little bit better for him in Vancouver, but he was in a good situation in Vancouver and
in Winnipeg he was in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Winnipeg.
He's an upgrade. He's an upgrade, but it's like you're slightly upgrading Eric Goodbranson.
Right.
You just have another one now. Yeah, I kind of question it, especially with you're trying to get younger. I know Vancouver's just desperate to acquire some talent.
Right. And JT Miller, I understand the acquisition there. I like him as a player. I think he's a great second line guy, but paying a first round price tag for him, just maybe a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, too much, too rich. Okay, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They signed. Hey, William Karlsson gets his 8-year deal, $5.9 a season. And that's pretty much all they've done. No real. I mean, they traded away Eric Howla, but they haven't really brought in a whole lot. They got Nicholas Roy in that deal. Your thoughts on that Erik Karlsson signing?
Yeah,
William Karlsson.
William Karlsson. Yeah, liked it. It's actually a very team friendly contract for a guy who's potentially a number. Your one. Number 2 center, whatever you want to, however you want to slot that Stasny line in. So he'll produce and produce for the life of that contract. He's still young enough, still fast enough. He'll be fine. The one signing I really like though for Vegas is the Brandon Peary signing. Granted he is 28 years old, but he's still got a lot of talent left in him, and I think he's just found his groove a little bit. You saw it last year, 18 points in 31 games when he was called up. It seemed like he was scoring every other game when he was up there, and 42 points in the minors in 29 games. So he's got some offensive upside, and I think that's a good depth signing to have on your third or fourth line.
Okay. The Washington Capitals, they made some interesting moves. Carl Hagelin re-signs. Well, he signed there, was traded there. 11 million over 4 years, so it's 2.75. And they signed Richard Panik to the same exact deal, 4 years, 11 million. And then Garnet Hathaway to a 4-year, $6 million deal. On top of that, they acquire Radko Gudas and Scott Kuzmachik from the Colorado Avalanche. Kind of a weird offseason for a team that looked like they were kind of crapped out in the first round. Carolina just had more maybe more fire because of the Capitals winning the year before, and they go and they moved Burakovsky, and they bring in Richard Panik, who is kind of floated around. He was on the Leafs, he was on the Blackhawks, Arizona, yeah, a guy who has looked like he maybe could be decent, but I mean he had 33 points last year, and I guess he had a good trip with Slovakia in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I don't know in terms of what Washington was doing and what they had to do bringing in a guy like that. Seems like a steep price tag for 4 years.
Yeah, my gripe. So you get a guy in Brett Connolly, right? I'm not sure if there was an internal struggle or maybe Brett Connolly really wanted out of there, but you have a guy who's a 20-plus goal scorer in Brett Connolly, former first-round pick. I think he went 4th overall or something like that.
Yeah.
He's starting to find his game. He looks really like a really good fit in Washington last year. And you basically go out and sign a lesser valuable guy, a lesser talent, a guy who scores less goals for $800,000 less. Why wouldn't you just give Brett Connolly that money and keep him around in a familiar situation, and you get a guy who can slot up in the second line if needed or be very productive in the third line? Don't understand it.
Yep. It looks like Washington's kind of in that cap hell, I think, kind of situation, but I feel like they shouldn't be. Like, yeah, they won, but they won on the backs of, like, their top player is already making the money. Like, It's not like it's just been a redo. Like, Kuznetsov is already signed. Ovechkin's already signed. Holtby is signed. It's all their best players are already signed.
So they have $4 million in cap space.
It seems a little like there was some mismanagement at some point. But to me, the Washington Capitals got worse on July 1st.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give them a D. They did nothing to really impress me. They didn't make that move that you need to, you almost need guts to make kind of thing. Like, they needed to deal someone. The Matt Niskanen, okay, yeah.
Radko Gudas was okay too.
But bringing in Gudas, I know analytics guys love him, but I feel like they needed somebody back there who could move the puck. And yeah, I guess you lose Brooks Orpik, so you add Gudas, but now who's going to be your guy who steps in for what Niskanen was? That's going to be a tough shoe to fill. Let's go Winnipeg Jets. Last team. This is their longest episode in like forever. We're at an hour and 22 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for listening if you're still here.
Heck yes.
Yeah.
Tweet at us if you're still listening. Say, I was still listening. You long in the tooth sons of bitches. So, okay, the Winnipeg Jets, they didn't do anything.
No,
other than trading Jacob Trouba like 3-4 weeks ago for Neil Pionk. So, really, the Winnipeg Jets, we could have started at the bottom or the top. Either way.
I guess. Winnipeg's dealing with their own internal struggle. It's just figuring out how to get
this Patrick
Laine and Connor signed, right? Connor, I would give Connor long-term money. Laine, I would be a lot more hesitant if it was me. Okay. And in fact, I hope somebody offer sheets Laine, and if I'm Winnipeg, I take those first 4 rounders and say, hey, I freaking welcome it.
Nobody's going to give Laine
somebody
much
might
money.
Because he's not going to sign it unless he gets within that, that $12 million, $10 million range. And so you're talking at least, the 2 first rounders. And then if maybe I'm on Winnipeg, maybe I say, okay, sure, I got Kyle Connor now. He's a steal of the draft, 3rd rounder. He looks freaking way better to me than Patrick Laine, at least more consistent at this point, and plays very well with our top guys.
Yeah, but do you want to give up on Laine right now? Because he's still...
No, but do you want to pay $10+ million, which is what it's going to cost?
No, so I don't think you're paying him that much.
I think that's what he wants, though. So.
Yeah, that's fine, but look at Sebastian Aho. You're going to just point to Sebastian Aho all day.
Yeah, well,
we'll see what Rantanen gets, because Rantanen may be more of a...
I think Marner's the first chip to fall, and then everybody follows suits.
Yeah, it's possible. But yeah, other than... I guess Aho is kind of the outlier, but... Okay, well, that's our show. There's every single freaking free agent out there that's signed so far, and we'll keep coming back all summer long, and, enjoy your vacations, but take us with you, take us in the car. And we'll see you on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Justin, any final words before maybe tonight we see a Marner offer sheet?
Oh, God.
1 year, $19.5 million.
Right, you can sign a guy up to $20 million. That's true. Yeah, nothing to say. Just I want to just see another offer sheet.
No,
though.
is it 20 million? Is that the max?
Yeah, I think that is.
Is it like 16 and a half or something?
You might be right. It is. I don't know.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.